Welcome to Minding the Waves, the podcast where we dive deep into life's ebbs and flows with a perfect blend of expert advice and heartfelt conversations. I'm your host, Sarah, and this is my husband, Trevor. We're thrilled to have you here, so grab a cup of your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's ride the waves together.
So, I think for this episode, keep it short and sweet. I had a question for you, and you said table it for the next episode of the podcast. So, I'm just going to read it off. I wrote it down so I don't mess it up. But what does it mean that I keep watching season 1 of different shows, but I don't go into the next season of that show despite liking it and like having the full intention to do so? But there's just a lot of shows on right now, you know, just a lot of shows in general. I like to rewatch them too, and I just I keep hopping and I can rarely ever finish it. Like, I do finish them eventually, but it's hard for me to do that. What is there like a therapeutic reason for this? What's wrong with me?
So I will say, you tend to ask me questions like this where you're like, I need an answer.
Yeah.
And this is one of those scenarios that there might not be one.
Really? Okay. That's fair.
Probably, you have ADHD, and so, that plays into it. You also have high levels of anxiety, and so...
And I love nostalgia, which I've recently learned is linked to ADHD.
Yeah, and anxiety.
Okay. Yeah.
We have our comfort shows, many of us girlies out there love watching Grey's Anatomy because, at least we know what's going to happen. So, we can go on that turmoil versus, I'll take I'm currently on, a 6-month break from Outlander because there was, a huge, thing that happened. I was like, that's too anxiety-provoking. I can't watch it.
Yeah.
So I need to dive back in.
Definitely.
So I will say that, anxiety plays a role into this of, wanting to rewatch your comfort shows that, bring you, that nostalgia factor, but also, bring you comfort. And, excuse me, a pilot season, the first season, doesn't mean that's what, the rest of the show is going to look like. So it might be you're not in a place to emotionally invest that amount into the next season or the new show.
Yeah.
I will also say that it's kind of a squirrel moment, with so many streaming services that we have access to and so much media and the 30-second news cycle, even 1-second news cycle, TikTok, our brains are addicted to dopamine at this point, and so you're okay, next thing, so you can get that dopamine boost. And so it's probably just, short attention span.
Yeah.
Is something that I would maybe guess.
Yeah.
We don't have to sit through commercials anymore.
Yeah.
For the most part.
I know. I can't remember the last time I've seen a commercial. Maybe the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is the best one, so.
Even that, even when I was younger, I had a TV in my room. I know, spoiled. And... we had DirecTV, and I loved having DirecTV, and all my friends liked coming over and watching DirecTV because I could record it, and then we could fast forward. Right. And I would not watch it until I had enough that I could fast forward because the idea of watching commercials was so painful, but it was still...
Wow.
It was still something there to, have to, be able to fast forward, and we don't even have that now. And, now we're annoyed where, you're watching a show now that's, releasing 1 episode a week. Or Bridgerton, season 3, got me so dirty. I didn't realize they were splitting it into 2.
Yeah, that's the new thing.
And you can even say this, I threw a hissy fit. I was, pouting for a solid 2 days.
Yeah.
Until I, got over it and then finally watched it, and then it was fine.
Yeah.
I will also say that it's a common experience that people forget about it. I saw someone on TikTok the other day. I don't remember your handle, but you were really pretty. She was, talking about how she's, seeing all these things of, clips from Bridgerton she hasn't seen before. And she's like, oh, wait, the second half of season 3 just came out.
Yeah.
I gotta go watch that now.
Yeah.
And so, I think because there's so much media coming at us so quickly that... we just, you can't watch it all.
Right.
And so we're just, moving on, trying to keep up as much as we can, and, that go rat race, and that kind of goes into, how I feel about COVID kind of put our lives on pause, or, rewind or like really slow, like slow-mo kind of thing. And now that like we picked up life, it's kind of been on fast forward.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
2 times speed, and so like there's even more with that. I also think people got really worried because like a lot of things didn't get filmed during COVID, and then we had the strike, and so there was a ton of things that like weren't getting filmed. So like everyone's like, oh my gosh, content, because like the media was talking about how we're gonna run out of content for shows.
Yeah, there was a time where we didn't really have a lot coming out, and now it's like the floodgates are open.
Yeah,
everything's coming out.
And so I'm, at least in my life, and hopefully in our lives, I'm making like a conscious effort to like slow down and not be on fast forward, and really finding the pace of life that works for us and me and my business and our lives.
That's the hardest challenge of life.
It is.
Finding balance in anything.
100%. And like balance changes. It's like when you're on a paddleboard, you think you're good, and the next thing you know, you fall off. You're figuring it out. Yeah. And so maybe in like slowing down, and remind yourself that like everything that you have to do will eventually get done. It might not get done in the time frame that you want it to get done, but it will eventually get done. And just slowing down. And like at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed at like 100 years old, are you really going to be upset that you didn't finish all the shows you ever wanted to watch, or read all the books you ever wanted to read?
Probably. Probably. Are my priorities straight? No. But yeah, no, it's been hard. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out, and I'm not built for the binge model. I like the episode weekly like release.
Insane.
Because it can sit, I can think about it, I can do other things in life rather than watch crap, and the binge model is like, nope, you sit on that couch and you stay there, and I don't like that. I get it. I got ADHD. That's what it sounds like. The answer to my question is I got ADHD, and I'm just the mental equivalent of a Pop-Tart.
Or a golden retriever.
Yeah, she calls me Golden Retriever, or Golden Retriever.
You came up with that nickname.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good nickname.
Better than your other one.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely a golden retriever.
Yeah.
I use it. It's a great nickname.
Yeah. So, okay. Nostalgia got me thinking about it. So, we saw Inside Out 2 recently.
Yes.
Great movie.
Amazing.
For therapists and everyone else. But, so after the first one came out, like, spoiler alert for 2015 movie, 10 years ago, but the first Inside Out, you realize that sadness is like not just a valid emotion, it's like vital to process things. And people were kind of thinking about like, okay, so all these combinations of emotions, what would sadness and happiness be? And some people said nostalgia, but then nostalgia was like a character in Inside Out 2, so now I'm not sure if that holds weight, but I kind of like that idea too, because like nostalgia makes me happy, but it also like helps me process a little bit of the sadness that's in me,
Yeah, I also think that there doesn't need to be a name for like all the emotions.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair.
So this is something I talk about with clients a lot, is in general when we talk about emotions, and like I think Inside Out does a really great job of showing this.
Yeah.
Is we think we're only allowed to feel one way at the same time, but in reality we can feel all the things, all the different feelings at the same time, and they're all equally valid. Like they might have like different levels, but like no matter what you're doing, like you're feeling all the things. So in that moment, she's probably equally, like Riley's equally sad and happy, and it's just about the perspective in which you look at it, and that doesn't define the worthiness of a memory or the good or bad of a memory. It just like shows something.
Right.
I also think what the first movie does a really great job in showing is you have to be able to like, she like starts associating numb. They can't like access the board at all.
Yeah. Oh, that's what that was.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And he was just rewatching this before we saw the second movie, so it's in my brain because I watched it on the scene. But you have to be able to feel all the emotions and have access to all the emotions, or that wall does come up. Yeah. And you can't necessarily, like, if you lock down sadness or anger or whatever, you're also not going to be able to feel joy.
Yeah. I think my one criticism with Inside Out, and hopefully they do something with this in like the third movie, or and if they don't, it's fine. But I feel like it misrepresents like people's behavior and like how we take actions. Like I feel like emotions driving behavior is not the best thing. There are people that are emotionally driven,
but I also think this is a kids movie,
right?
That like, yes, it was really more meant for like the undertones of this movie in those both movies were very targeted and very emotional and very big for adults. But we have to keep in mind this is a kids movie, so it is going to be simplified in a way that like kids can understand. And think about our nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
They are emotionally driven creatures. We're talking about, these are memories from early childhood, and she's a preteen. Like, she's about to enter into the hormone phases, which happen in Inside Out 2.
Right,
so that is a really accurate representation to a child.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it's not a one-to-one translation for the human mind, but it's pretty darn close.
Yes.
Like, they're very smart about it. Pixar's very creative with that kind of stuff.
It at least gives because a lot of people are visual learners, it gives an example and a foothold to then have a conversation and like expand on it.
Yeah. And
which is, I think, coming from a movie perspective, is a really great thing. Like, if a movie's talking about it, it's more likely to be talked about. The amount of people who have talked to me about anxiety in the last month is insane.
Yeah. So, selfless plug, I do have a YouTube channel.
It's really good.
Called The Sandbox. A lot of random stuff there, but mainly we talk a lot about animation and books, which we'll get to in another episode. And I do ranking videos, video essays, just trying to kind of do what Pixar does. And I talk about this in my Inside Out 2 review a little bit, but just that they're really good at relating to the human experience and giving you something to walk away with and chew on and like have those insights, have that joy. But they're really creative with their storytelling. And I don't know. I wanted to kind of mention that just because
absolutely
it really is a great film. It just, anyone can relate to it. We all have these emotions, and even if we're more logically driven or externally driven by some other source, everyone can relate to the universal experience of emotions and having those override your system and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this goes into another thing that I say with clients all the time is you can feel however you want to feel. Your feelings themselves are 1,000% valid. Let me say this again. Your feelings themselves are 1,000% valid, no matter what. But just because you feel however you want to feel, well, I'm not going to say but, because but erases everything beforehand. And just because you feel however you want to feel, because your feelings are valid no matter what, you can't act however you want to act.
Yeah.
And that's a really big distinction you see between Inside Out 1 and Inside Out 2, because she is being emotionally driven and acting in a specific way based on emotions.
Yeah.
And she's now entering in high school and this life transition, and you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
You can't just act a certain way because you have an emotion. Like, the intellectual level is rising.
Yeah.
And that's something really important to teach our kids, and this is a really great footing for them to then see it and understand it and then bring it in. Right. Not that we have kids, but we do have a ton of nieces and nephews. Mm-hmm. So it's a really great, I don't know if we want to talk about their names online, but little dude is
our nephew,
and because of that, we could really talk about his overwhelming anxiety or fear or sadness from a better foothold that he could understand at his level. Right. It's really giving parents the language to communicate at a child's level to navigate these things.
It's kind of a tool for the parents as well.
Yeah, and there are so many things that I say all the time that we should. I know, the bullshit meter.
Her eyes, if you're watching, her eyes will do this constantly.
That is not true. It's not
true.
Constant. My right eye, and my clients who have seen me for a very long time will know this. This eye is the bullshit meter. It'll sometimes go off. I can't help it. It's not my fault. The bullshit meter goes off.
Yeah. For people listening, her eyes don't blink at the same time when she senses bullshit, as she says.
Or I'm drunk.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's when you usually get really annoyed about it. I was telling a client the other day about it because it went off, and then she was laughing her butt off.
So someone else noticed it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I apologized. I was like, hey, sorry, this is my bullshit meter.
Yeah.
It was like clients who've known me for a really long time will know
so
this.
funny.
It was actually a first session, and she literally was laughing so hard. She loved it. I was like, yeah, my husband gets so annoyed with it. And she's like, why does he get annoyed? Like on my defensive. I was like, no, it creeps him out. He's not mad, but like he's mad.
Yeah, good for her though. Yeah, sticking up for you. I like that. Yeah. But anyways, Inside Out 2.
Inside Out 2
helps you process emotions.
Yeah, and it goes back to what I talk about all the time is like there are things that we should be teaching in kindergarten and before that like we as adults struggle with on a daily basis, and like then we get upset with kids because they are struggling with it too, and they're experiencing these things for the first time. Like emotional intelligence is not innate. Like you're not born with emotional intelligence. It is something that is learned, and it thus has to be taught. Like you're not taught. You're not. Excuse me. You don't inherently know how to handle your emotions. Like, we as adults struggle with this. We can think of many people in our life who actively struggle with it on a regular basis. So how are we expecting kids to have this experience? Boundaries. So many of us, especially, like everyone struggles with boundaries, but especially women who are actively told not to keep boundaries because then you're just being too sensitive or too emotional or whatever. Like, boundaries are something that we should be teaching our kids at a really early age that, like, we as adults struggle with. And why are we, like, making this separation of, like, adults have these issues and they need to deal with it as adults, when in reality, if we were taught them as a child, we wouldn't be having these issues as adults. And it's easier to learn and teach as a child.
Yeah, definitely.
So, one of my soapboxes. I have many.
Yeah, that's fair.
But that's all the time we have for today. We wanted to do a shorter little episode today, but if you have any thoughts, opinions, questions, you're angry at me, that's fine. Put them in the comments below. Ask me any questions. If you have any ideas for any topics you want us to cover in the future, let us know. And with that, keep minding the waves. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.